G'day, one and all, and welcome to Legends and War, a Legends and Lore podcast coming straight to your ear canals from down under. We're a group of 40k fans who have come together to bring you some grouse content from the world's rowdiest continent. My name is Lachlan, and I'll be your host. And I'm joined today by our resident Tau Commander, Jack Wilson, and our greater good comrade, Graydon Price. G'day, gents. How are ya?
Yeah, really good, mate. How are you?
Oh, not bad. And welcome to the pod, Graydon. Good to have you on.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, mate.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Let's dive into some fishy goodness. So, just to get a bit of an intro on you, mate, as this is your first appearance with us, how did you get into 40k, Graydon?
So when I was a young lad, I actually got into Warhammer from the Lord of the Rings games that came out with the movies. I was right in that time period, and then it kind of was a pretty natural transition for my mates in high school who were already into 40k that I essentially transitioned over at sort of end of really mid third ed, and then really got into it in fourth ed and fifth ed. And actually, my first army ever was Tau in 40k.
really?
when that book dropped.
Were you
and
gaming? Were you gaming back then, or were you just kind of collecting and painting?
Collecting, painting, playing like very casual games. And then I went off the Tau for a long time, and I sold off those models, and I came back into them at the start of 8th ed as mostly as a sort of passion painting project more than anything else, and then
Awesome.
It's that kind of morphed into actually using them fairly regularly on the tabletop.
Yeah, it's kind of nice when your actual painting and passion projects pay off, because I kind of feel like they actually make them more fun to play, because you've actually put so much heart into them that you kind of want to see them succeed. And I kind of find that the models you put the effort into don't flunk as much. I don't know if that's just self-fulfilling prophecy or whether it's true or not, but I like to keep that kind of illusion so that I paint my stuff properly. So,
Yeah, 100%.
tell us about your journey recently with the Tau. What kind of...
I'm going to be frank. So I have not played Tau in any tournaments for all of ninth, and that's not so much because they haven't been particularly good. It's because I've been playing my other passion project, which is the Iron Warriors. So it's not like I'm moving too far up in the rungs of power with them. But my Tau army is I'm a Riptide chassis fanboy, always have been. So I own 4 normal Riptides, I own 2 Yavara, I own a Ravana, and I've just got a lot of big suits, got a Ghost Keel, and then a lot of Fire Warriors, many Commanders, and now I'm finally accepting that you should probably own some Crisis suits, but planning to get back into them before this codex kind of got announced and dropped. I was planning to get back into them at Arc this year, which I'm unfortunately not going to make because of
That's a pity.
other reasons. But I was going to rock Fish of Fury with the old Reinforced Warheads trait from the Greater Good books for the extra AP that back there, and I was just going to come around, muck around on the bottom tables with this really fluffy Fish of Fury list with 4 units of Fire Warriors sitting in Devilfish, and then turns out I've just been playing the long game all along.
You're just sensing it in the warp despite your lack of psychic ability. For those that don't know, what is Fish of Fury exactly?
So Fish of Fury, the original idea of it came way back with the skimmer rules. So people just assume it's playing lots of Devilfish and boxing people out, but it actually comes back, bit of history lesson, comes back from 4th ed with how the old skimmer rules worked, where you could fire underneath, and it was also, I think, in 5th ed, you could fire underneath a friendly skimmer, and then you could not be shot at in return. Because of how it worked. And so you would get out a unit of Fire Warriors with their tiny 25mm bases and a Devilfish with its humongous chassis. You jump out one side, you blast something away, and then you just be a bright pain and say, actually, you can't shoot me. So it was Just some like janky tactics back from some of the old editions with how it worked.
That's a pain in the ass. So, it looks like someone at Games Workshop's remembered that and wanted to bring a bit of that back.
Yeah,
So
good stuff.
the pain continues. So, Jack, tell us about your love affair with the Tau. What's your story?
So, uh, so I was into 40k quite a bit when I was younger, when I was 14, 15, 16. Fell out of love. I fell in love with chasing females. And I got sidetracked for a little bit. But then I got back into it in the late parts of seventh, and I was just wanted something different. I'd run Space Marines before, and I just liked the look of the Tau. I had already started collecting orcs at that stage, and I wanted a kind of like a competitive army against the opposite of what the orcs were, and that was the Tau. So yeah, I started, and I liked the look of the models. So I started, just buying a few kits and put them together. I made them the Farsight Enclaves at the time because they were, the anti-orc
Nice.
Tau army, and yeah, just kind of grew from there. I played with them very heavily in eighth. The triple Riptide. I too have a couple of Yavaras. The Crisis suit. So the Crisis suit for me was what I liked about the army. I really loved the idea of the Crisis Bomb. I went and bought a whole heap of third-party cyclic ion blasters. So I had a big unit of six or seven Crisis with triple cyclic iron, and I would just drop that in. It'd be like an 800-point unit, and it would just like wreck face on entry. Yeah. But I mean, that was the one and done, right? If you didn't kill what you needed to kill, you're in a bit of strife. So, but anyway, that's what it was, and played them all the way up until probably the mid to late parts of eighth, and then I actually went into Custodes from there. I just wanted something different and went from a shooting army to a kind of a melee.
It's been a big month for you, mate. Tau and Custodes.
Yeah, right now 2 books at the same time. It's a bit crazy, man. Bit crazy.
Gonna be hard to pick what to play, eh?
Yeah, because they're 2 really good books at the same time. So it's it's something else. So, yeah, can't complain, mate.
Yeah, for sure. On a surface level, what's your take on the new book, Jack?
Man, love it. They have changed the army in a big way. From what it was played previously to what it is now, they've lost a few rules, gained a few rules. That they're always known for their Overwatch and their Overwatch abilities for the greater good was the name of the ability. Where they could overlap Overwatch, and if you charge one unit, other units could come in and tackle that as well. And so that's gone. I think they've gone back to how the Tau army should have been playing. A mobile, still a shooting force. Like don't get me wrong, they're definitely not a combat force by any stretch of the imagination. Mostly, they have become a mobile army. You play them as a mechanized mobile army, and that's the fluff, man. That's what they are. So a nice high tech army, high tech guns, and shoot your enemies away.
Yeah, love it when they actually stick true to the fluff. What's your take, Graydon? What do you reckon about the new book, just on the surface level?
I love this book. I think it is by and far one of the best codexes that has come out in ninth for how it has invigorated a faction that was kind of struggling to find its stride, but also invigorated in a way where it's added a really obvious dynamic that they want you to go for and you're rewarded to go for, while also getting rid of all of the mechanics that were just feel bad to play into, and also, to be honest, kind of boring to play. I thought that For the Greater Good was just a trashy mechanic. It was very easy to play around if you knew how to use terrain properly, knew how to charge and like what order to charge it and how to charge out of line of sight and etc. And it was just like, you're fishing for sixes or maybe fives. It's just a waste of time. It's just boring. And Savior Protocols, God, that was such it was a convoluted, feel bad, janky set of rules that just rewarded you for not interacting in the game, and that's not what I come to play 40k for. I come to play 40k to blow stuff up and throw dice at people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really kind of burns when, your army gets rules that just make people not want to play against you.
Yeah.
Because Tau's been so limited to one phase of the game for so long, it really means they have to be punishing in that phase, and therefore people don't want to touch you. So good to see that they've given them a few more options, made them a bit more flexible, and actually changed up the style of play.
Yeah, I think they've done an excellent job in encouraging you to open yourself up in play to uncastle. I think the Tau Castle's dead, and it's just a much more fun game to both play with them and play into them.
So to preview what we're going to cover today, we're going to first go over the faction rules, the things that have changed and that are unique to the Tau. So first we'll touch on the philosophies, the Modkar and Carrion. I'm sure most people have heard of them by now. We'll touch on the new rules to battlesuits and Markalites and drones. We'll discuss the new changes to Kroot in ambushing predators. And we'll discuss the new ethereals, or Tau litanies, which have now been called invocations of ethereals. Then we'll get onto the warlord traits, relics, prototype systems, or unit upgrades, as we've come to know them as in 9th edition. And we might touch on the secondaries if there's anything to say there, and move on to the sub-factions and some lists. So, the philosophies. Jack, would you read out Modkar for us?
All right. Modkar. So this tactical philosophy. Also, I should actually read out what they mean. So if every unit from your army, excluding the Tau Auxiliary, Supreme Commander, and unaligned units, is from the same set, then at the start of the battle, when you've determined who has the first turn, you can select one of the two tactical philosophies. Tempo units, excluding the auxiliary units, from your army, gain the benefits of this tactical philosophy. If both players have a similar ability, the player who has the first turn chooses first. So of the two, the first one here is Modkar, and so this comes into effect battle rounds 1 to 3. And its abilities are: each time this unit makes a normal move or advances in your movement phase, until the end of your shooting phase, it counts as having remained stationary.
Sure.
Quite good. It's also got another ability. It's also, each time a model in this unit makes a ranged attack that targets the closest eligible enemy unit within a range shown in the table, improve the armor penetration characteristic of the attack by 1, and you can reroll the wound roll of 1. So as the battle rounds go on, first battle round you got 18-inch range. From second battle round, you have 12-inch range, and then from the third battle round, you're at 9-inch range. So it's actually encouraging you to move closer to the enemy as the battle goes on.
Even at 18 inches, I mean, that's not really hard to get first turn.
There's a few, there's the transports, the crisis suits, which have been upgraded to a 10-inch move. I mean,
wow. Yeah.
You're allowed, in that same Modkar, you can advance and still count as remain stationary. So you definitely got a lot of movement, and if you've deployed in a certain way, you definitely get up there pretty quick.
Do the units with a pre-game move, or who can set up in the no man's land for Tau, namely like the crisis suits, the ghost keel, is it Pathfinders as well?
Not Pathfinders, I believe they just get a pre-game move, like the Kroot do.
Sure.
The only thing that sets up in no man's land is the stealth stuff, so ghost keel and the stealth suits.
Okay, so for those units, is the extra AP and reroll of a 1 going to change their game? Are they struggling? Like what kind of profiles have we got there?
Well, the Ghost Kill's a funny one, for one, because it's got another ability where if you're outside of 18 inches, you can't actually target it. So I would actually probably keep him back a bit and keep him unshootable. Yeah, so whereas the stealth unit has an ability to do a homing beacon, which allows you to bring a crisis or any unit in Manta Strike down, which would literally be a crisis unit.
It's only Crisis Core, so you can't actually use it on a commander or anything. It has to be a unit of Crisis suits. So
it is a crisis.
And that's a key thing there too. You can't use. Oh no, you can use it. Sorry, on a bodyguards unit, they have the core keyword. So yeah, it's bodyguards or crisis normal units to come down with the homing beacon.
So yeah, you can forward deploy the stealth unit and then turn one Manta Strike them in. So that's the play.
What is Manta Strike? Is that in the battlesuit rule?
That's their deep strike.
Sure.
During deployment, you get to put the guys up in Manta Strike.
So, remaining stationary, what units is that going to have a strong effect for? Who's going to get bonuses from that?
The majority of weapons in Tau are assault, or if they have heavy weapons, they tend to be on vehicles, thus it's not too much of an issue. It's more the fact that crisis suits can advance and shoot without penalty, and and so can infantry, of course, but you suddenly get crisis suits with their improved movement value of 10, plus a sneaky strat for 1 CP where you can just flat advance 6, or if you've got a cold star, you can make a crisis suit unit flat advance 8, and suddenly you have a unit that you can deploy very conservatively and has the infantry keyword, so it can interact with terrain really easily, that can just like swarm 16 to 18 inches around the board, be wherever it wants to be, do whatever it wants to do.
That's great. Mount Carver really does seem stacked full of bonuses. Let's move on to Kauyon and see how it stacks up against it.
So, going through Kauyon, I'll read it out briefly. So, battle rounds 3 to 5, and of course it affects all units except for auxiliary units. This unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it fell back, but if it does, then until the end of the turn, you subtract 1 from the hit roll. Each time a model in this unit makes a ranged attack that targets the closest eligible enemy unit within 12 inches, if that model is not within engagement range of enemy units and did not fall back this turn, on an unmodified hit roll of the value shown in the table below, you score an extra hit. So round 3 it's a 6, round 4 it's a 5 up, round 5 it's a 4 up.
That might sound strong on the surface, but it does seem, as you know, we've all probably heard online, that Montcar's got a lot of hype. And from my perspective as someone who actually doesn't play Tau, I'm a little bit confused as to why Kauyon's got a limitation for something that doesn't kick in until later in the game.
Yeah, my concerns with Kauyon are partly the range, and partly that it has to target the closest enemy unit. I think that makes it a bit difficult with that range. And then my last one that really irks me on it is the fact that it allows you to fall back and shoot, and then once you do so, you don't get your bonus for the additional hits.
Exactly. And that's when you would probably be within 12 because someone's tagged you and you say, well, seriously, get wrecked.
I'm like,
I'm gonna
and then
smash
if
it.
you give all your crisis suits the ability to shoot into combat, and then they can't benefit from the Kauyon when they're trapped down there, in the turns 4 and 5, and you're just like, well, you're in combat with me, and it's like, no, turns out you're in the shooting phase with me, and you just blast them to pieces, but your Kauyon doesn't actually kick in, and you don't get your additional hits. So it feels a little disappointing.
It's strange.
I can see there being some use for it, especially in kind of top-end tournaments where you've got a quite skilled player and you actually take Kauyon to throw them off a little bit. But having 2 restrictions for your rules when Montcar doesn't really have restrictions, that just seems a bit off.
So there's a Waller trait, which is quite good. Alright, so the example of the Kauyon. After both players have deployed their armies and determined who has the first turn, select 1 friendly step unit, or up to 3 friendly step units if you've selected Kauyon Tactical Philosophy this battle, and redeploy them. If this mission uses Strategic Reserves rules, any of those units can be placed into Strategic Reserves without having to spend additional CPs, regardless of how many units are already in Strategic Reserves. If both players have abilities that redeploy units, roll off, the winner chooses who to redeploy the units first.
That's interesting.
So that's
Yeah.
that ties in with the Koyon tactical philosophy and gives it some hope. I feel as well in the Codex of old, Koyon was a buff where everyone stayed still, everyone got to reroll hits within an aura. So I think the mindset of people when they see the word Koyon, they think sit, hold tight, shoot. Whereas Koyon of New is actually a close range ability, and just like Monkar wants you to be up close 3, 4, 5. So
Yep.
I think the static mindset of what Koyon was and what it is now actually has changed. You know, Monkar of old is the same mindset in my opinion. Before it allowed you to move, advance. You know, so that's how it was last time. So it's kind of the same now to some extent. I mean, it's better now, but whereas Koyon is changed. Like before, it was you stay still, you're static, and you get to reroll all your hits. Now it actually you get all your bonuses from actually being up close to the enemy and in the later stages of the game. So yeah, I don't know. There's going to definitely be a build there somewhere that makes it work, but yeah, definitely
I think personally, having I think every army that you make, you should really consider putting a utility character or something in there that has Exemplar of Koyon, simply so that you have this in your back pocket. Because the key thing with these philosophies to remember too is you declare them after you know who's going first, after everybody's deployed. So you're all deployed, you roll off to see who goes first. After that first turn, you go, and before you do your pre-game moves, etc., you go, I'm going to either Monkar or Koyon, and having it in your back pocket with that Warlord trait to suddenly go, I am going to redeploy 3 units, whether that be take, long strike that you've got sitting there, bullying your opponent's deployment, making them be really careful with how they put their tanks and stuff so they don't just get disintegrated first turn. You suddenly go, I'm going to put him in reserves. That saved me 2 CP. He can come on turn 3 and blow shit up then. Or you have even just having a unit of stealth suits that was gonna put a homing beacon down and drop a big thing, and just suddenly being able to redeploy them. So the Warlord trait allows you to do one of those units, but there are going to be games where you have either made mistakes or you have deployed in a way where your opponent expects you to Monkar, expects you to be hyper aggressive, and you force them to deploy in a fashion to counter that, and then suddenly you go Koyon and you turn this game into a cagey game. You take them off the back foot, no one scores many points for turns 1 and 2, and then you actually get to see the benefits kick in. I think it's going to take a canny player to really benefit from Koyon, and it's going to take a lot of personal sort of reserve and discipline to not just go into the habits of, I have breaches in Devilfish, let's get them in your face.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's nice because it means that the Codex actually has a bit of a strong skill ceiling to it, like all codexes should, and you can't just point and shoot and instantly plug in any rule and just make it sweep. It shows that you'll actually have to have some proper generalship to make it work, and it'll give you or any other budding tower commander something to kind of strive for, to be constantly looking out for, and I think that's always a good thing to have.
Yeah, 100% agree.
So for the fallback part of Koyon, how many units in the Tower Codex can fall back or can gain access to falling back and shooting?
It is difficult. It's, as far as I'm aware, and outside of Koyon, it's pretty much limited to Crisis Suits via having a commander or Farsight, the standard commander or Farsight, buff them up.
So they give that out? Is that part of their...
Yeah, so every commander has a underlying ability to them, and I think that they have really balanced these out quite well. So the standard commander allows a unit to shoot or charge on a turn it fell back, and it can also do this without penalty, and it also allows them to standardly just ignore penalties when they make ranged attacks. So that's quite a good offensive buff, and allows you to remain mobile.
Mm.
The Enforcer Commander, and this is the one that I personally like just because of how it plays into using Crisis for my Tau list personally, because I'm not doing too much deep striking and taking advantage of the Farsight Enclave's strats with the deep striking. I'm trying to use Crisis more as a mid-game bully piece. The Enforcer Commander gives a unit of Crisis suits the core keyword, and then suddenly you have a 6-man core infantry unit that can in this codex very easily shoot while also doing actions, and it just starts to really play well into the mission primary, the second part of the primary, and also secondaries in general. And the last one is the Cold Star, and the Cold Star is by and far the most powerful of the commanders personally, just from the movement and the fact that he gets essentially a free hard point because he comes with a target lock and 4 hard points. But he allows a unit of Crisis suits to flat advance 8 inches every turn, which I personally think is the weakest of these because you have a 1 CP strat to advance 6 inches anyway.
It's good to see that some of the HQs are getting non-reroll related bonuses to give the army a bit more flexibility without forcing you to have to pay more CP for them. And I think it's really good to see. It just means that armies can be a bit more flexible and adaptive without having to constantly be forking out points and then losing those abilities. So I think that's great. And while we're on the topic of battlesuits, why don't we move on to the actual new battlesuit rules? So, Jack, do you want to cover that one for us?
Battlesuit models in this unit can make attacks with ranged weapons, even though the unit is within engagement range of enemy units. But they can only make such attacks against enemy units that are within engagement range of. In such circumstances, those models that can target an enemy unit, even if other friendly units are within engagement range of the same enemy unit. Yeah, so, I mean...
What's your take there?
Yeah.
Do you like the changes?
Having that ability to actually just, have a go while you're being tagged, you're not really essentially tagged anywhere, are you, really? So,
it's kind of essential.
Definitely.
And you can't have armies like, Tau and Guard that can just be tagged and just become useless overnight. So nice that they've kind of gotten that back. And it's how many units benefit from the battlesuits rule?
Any big
anything that you think should be a battlesuit is pretty much a battlesuit.
Are we talking stealth suits as well?
And even stealth suits,
Storm Surge.
I think let me just check. I think they may have. No, Riptides are a battlesuit, but I mean, Riptides also have the vehicle keyword anyway, so they can do this anyway. So the battlesuit keyword also keys into a couple of. I think it might key into a couple of stratagems, or maybe not. The Storm Surge is not a battlesuit, and it never has been. It's because it's actually
a mech, right?
Well, it's a mech. In the fluff, it's not piloted by a single Shazui or Shazvray. It's piloted by like 3 standard. I think there's like 2 Shazlars and 2 Shazui, so just like standard like Fire Warrior-esque sort of dudes. So it's not a battlesuit. In the fluff, a battlesuit has only got a single pilot sort of thing. So it's just a big vehicle. But of course, I mean, it can shoot an combat anyway.
Right. Well, good to know. Good to know for those of us who aren't Tau experts. So, Graydon, do you want to go through the new Markalite rules?
All right. So, Markalites are in action now, and thus have all the limitations that actions do. So, if you have something that prevents you from doing an action, then you cannot fire a Markalite. Any unit that has a Markalite gains the Markalite keyword, enabled to do this action. You start the action at the start of your movement phase, so that's when you declare it, and then at the start of your shooting phase, the action is complete, and for every unit that did this action, you count up all the models that have Markalites in them, you pick a unit that is within 36 inches and would be eligible for them to shoot if they could shoot it. And on a 3-up, it gains a Marker Light token. So what that means is, and it specifically states that if you're a vehicle or a drone, you can move without that action failing.
Sure.
So what that means is if you're an infantry model, like that isn't a Pathfinder, we'll get to that in a sec. So if you're a Firesight marksman, if you're a Fireblade, if you're a random breacher Shazui that has a Marker Light on his gun for whatever reason you thought it was a good idea to put it on there, you can't move and do this action. If you're a vehicle, you declare the action. You don't have to see your target. You declare the action, and then because you're allowed to move, and you're allowed to move into where you can see your target, and then it completes in the shooting phase, or at the start of the shooting phase. That's drones as well. Yeah.
So you really have to know that you're actually going to get that Marker Light off and kind of have pre-measured.
Yeah, it's because you can pre-measure now. It's I mean, we've been able to for a while. It makes it very consistent with doing it, and to be honest, the vast majority of things that you're going to have Marker Lights on are drones, vehicles, or Pathfinders, and Pathfinders are special because they start and finish the action essentially at the end of the movement phase and the start of and then it finishes at the start of the shooting phase, so they can still move and do it. The key differences between the old Marker Lights are that it always happens on a 3+, so you don't have to care about negatives to hit, the fact that it used to be a heavy weapon, the fact that your ballistic skill was trash, that's irrelevant now, and it doesn't prevent you from shooting your other weapons. You can still fire all your guns on the Marker Light unit, you can still make use of them, which is just fantastic. And the Marker Light benefits have been very much so streamlined. Now, every time the action is successful, so that 3-up, the unit gains a Marker Light token. Then, the next time it's shot at by a Tau Empire, so no auxiliary units, sorry, crew, you have to use that Marker Light token up. You don't get a choice on it, and you add 1 to the hit roll for that unit firing.
Oh, sure. So it's like a one and done kind of thing.
Yeah, so say I have a unit of, like an enemy unit, a tank or whatever, I get 3 Marker Light tokens on it. Next time I fire a unit at it, even if the unit split fires and it's a big unit of Crisis Suit and half of it's firing at, some infantry, and then I'm firing a couple of plasma rifles at that tank, I use that Marker Light token up. I don't get a choice. And then...
Oh, really? You just have to use it?
Have to use it. If you fire at it, you have to use it. Based on how it's worded, there's no choice. You can use it. Just as each time a model makes a ranged attack with 1 or more Marker Light tokens, you add 1, and then the Marker Light token's used up. So, no choice on the matter. So, even if you've got a velocity tracker and you're firing at a unit that can fly and you've already got +1, you still use up your Marker Light token. But having said that, they're so much easier to get off. You're already getting your big bonus with your +1 right out of the gate, so I think this is a fantastic change.
Yeah, look, me too, and especially as an enemy player, the chart can bamboozle you because you've got enough rules to remember for your own army yourself, let alone to remember what stage of the chart you used to be up to in 8th edition. So I think that's probably a good change for everyone, really. And also adding that kind of tactical element of you're not going to shoot units at something with Marker Lights if you've just got 2 guns in a unit because you'd probably be wasting it. Interesting to see what that does for some late game play as well.
Absolutely.
Alright, coming to the drones. There's 14 different drones here, which is a little bit to wrap your head around. So we're not going to go through all of these in detail, but we will touch on a few of them, especially the ones that you're going to see the most. So, Jack, what have you got?
So I've gone with the Grav Inhibitor drone. It's got an ability called the Gravity Wave Projector. So subtract 2 from charge rolls, made for any unit that declares a charge against this unit. So these are taken through a Pathfinder unit, and anything that stops or can put a negative on your charge roll is fantastic. Especially, once again, for a gunline army or an army that's wants to be shooting and not assaulting.
Especially if you add it with that strat that's coming up later in the review to deduct more from your charge rolls. That's quite nice.
The Photon Grenade strat for the Neg 2.
Yeah, awesome. Neg 4 is not nice. Alright, Graydon, what's your pick, mate?
The marker drone. So the marker drone is says what on the box. It's a drone with a marker light. Most importantly, because it's a drone, when you go back to those marker light rules, it is allowed to move and still do the marker light action. So this is how you just sprinkle marker lights throughout your army, and most importantly, you can chuck a pair of marker drones on pretty much every character in the book, and they still get all the normal sort of character protections that they would, so you can get a lot of fairly safe marker lights out there, and then when the going gets tough, use them as ubiquitous wounds.
Yeah, it's tasty. Alright, and next up, Jack.
So I've gone with the recon drone. So the recon drone's a funny old drone. So he's got a burst cannon, and he's also got the ability to recon suit, a recon suite.
Yes. Say it again.
It'd be recon suite, right?
Yeah, it's recon.
Yeah. So the recon drone has an ability called the recon suite. Each time a model in this unit makes a range attack, the target's a unit within 18 inches. The target does not receive the benefits of light cover against that attack.
That's right.
So essentially gives his unit takes light cover away. So it's always handy.
It is for Pathfinders specifically, though.
Sure.
It's a chunky boy. It's 3 wounds.
He's real fat.
The only thing I'm disappointed by is that they haven't added in the old ability where it didn't used to take up space with the devilfish, because it slots into the model itself, slots into the devilfish. It's great.
Really?
Yeah, it
slots into the top.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
That's pretty cool.
That's great. All right, and the last one.
The shield drone, the OG.
Classic.
So the shield drone is slightly chunkier than the standard drones, having 2 wounds. And it has a drone shield generator, which gives this model a 4+ invulnerable save. I mean, this is just good at 12 points to chuck on your units that you don't want to die, like Crisis and Broadsides, and that's pretty much all you need to know about it.
So, Jack, you were talking about a Manta Strike before. Do you want to read that out for us?
Yeah, sure. Here it is. Manta Strike. During deployment, you can set up this unit in Manta Hold instead of setting them up on the battlefield. If you do, then the reinforcement step of one of your movement phases, you can set this unit up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from enemy models.
Yeah.
Just basic deep strike, really.
Pretty classic. And what units, off the top of your head, get access to that?
Your Crisis units, your main ones.
Some of the commanders, the HQs as well?
Yeah, commanders, HQs. I don't know if it's Manta Strike for the Vespid, but no, they just got wings, flat out wings. They're the other unit you'd want to keep up in reserves. But yeah, apart from that, just pretty much the suits, man.
Riptides don't have that?
No.
That's good to know. All right.
Yeah.
They don't need that. I like to see them so I can shoot them.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on to ambushing predators. Graydon.
Yeah, so ambushing predators is a 7-inch pre-game move for it's a key word or phrase that's on every crew model. So it's on your standard crew, it's on your shaper, it's on your crew tox, and it's on your hounds. So you get a 7-inch move after you know who's going first, standard sort of timing for it, and you can't start within 9 inches of any enemy models.
Pretty standard, but good to see that crew are getting a bit of love, and I'm sure plenty of people are going to be quite stoked about that. All right, Jack, Inspired to Greatness.
Inspired to Greatness. In your command phase, select one friendly Tau Empire core or Tau auxiliary unit within 6 inches of this unit's ethereal model, excluding class-up enclosed units. Until the start of your next command phase, while that unit is performing an action, it can make ranged attacks without failing that action.
Good to see. I mean, you couldn't really have a shooting army that can't do actions and shoot these days, I don't think.
Yeah,
No.
This is very, very strong, in my opinion. And I think ethereals are sort of the big, thing one way or another of do you go Farside Enclaves or do you go with one of the other seps, because they've got a lot of utility and a lot of good Litauanese. That was a terrible pun, sorry. But yeah, they
cheesy.
I know, right? But yeah, I think it's a big difference. And anybody who's looked through the internet and taking a Farsight Enclaves Allied World or whatever it is and putting ethereals in it, firstly, don't do that. Secondly, that's very clearly going to get errated in like a week's time. So don't bother building around that. Is my advice.
Yeah, don't waste your time, eh? So, Graydon, tell us about ethereals.
All right. So ethereals, firstly, really good, excellent utility piece. I'll quickly touch on the character ethereals. So both character ethereals, Unvar and Unshi, know 3 of your invocations, your litanies, and can intone 2 of them, and they go off on a 2+, which is obviously really powerful. And they can be taken in any sept without breaking the sept rules. The normal ethereal knows 2 litanies and can invocate 1 on a 3+, obviously quite toned down. However, it has to be said now, there is a relic that seems almost semi-compulsory if you're running an ethereal that allows you to intone a second sort of invocation every time you do it, and makes them both go off on a 2+. So essentially brings you almost to the power level of one of the named ethereals.
It's pretty much a Master of Sanctity, really.
Yeah, it's 100% a Master of Sanctity, to be honest.
Well, if it's not broke, don't fix it,
Yeah, their main benefits would be the Inspired to Greatness, which isn't an invocation in of itself. It's just a rule that they get, and they also get a aura.
Tell us about that. What's Inspired to Greatness?
So that's what Jack touched on earlier, where you can have a core unit complete an action and still.
That's right. Yep.
Then they have their failure is not an option, which basically allows them to give their leadership to nearby units within 6 inches, and they do have a leadership of 10. And luckily now, it doesn't make everybody sad when they die, which used to happen in previous editions of the Tau Codex.
Sad.
Oh yeah, in the 4th I think it was the 4th one. You got negatives when the ethereal died.
Mate, it was five editions ago. You're gonna have to get over that one.
Oh, I don't know.
Still sad.
I was always sad when Unshi died. I felt bad. I felt like I let him down. And specifically, ethereals, I cannot stress how many times in this book they say that an ethereal and their abilities do not work with Farsight Enclaves and cannot be taken with Farsight Enclaves. So I would just stress to everybody going there, this is going to be errated. There is not going to be a way where you have ethereals in an allied Farsight Enclaves army. It just won't happen.
Don't do it.
If you want to be that guy for the next few weeks, go right on ahead. But yeah, don't plan around it.
So Jack, do you want to start on the invocations for us? What's the first one?
Yeah, sure. So like most codexes, especially Space Marine ones, there's 6. So we start with Storm of Fire. If this invocation is inspiring, select one friendly Tau Empire core unit, excluding Farsight Enclave units, once again, within 6 of this ethereal. That unit can make range attacks without any action it is performing failing.
So that's 2. So your ethereal could give out 2 actions in a turn, and I guess that's probably to make way for your Markalites, right?
No, it's so the Markalites don't have to worry about this, because the action for the Markalite is you can't really set it up in a fashion that you can do a Markalite action and still do a mission action, because most of them all happen in the movement phase, and so you're kind of overlapping with that.
Yep.
The main reason that I can see Storm of Fire existing, when they already give it out, is specifically for the stratagem that allows an ethereal to do one of their litanies out of phase. And what that means is, because these all happen in the command phase, you can have an ethereal, say in a transport, or move up to a unit and then pop the stratagem, then pop Storm of Fire on that unit, and then have them do an action while still shooting. So you can have a unit of Crisis Suits come in from reserves and still benefit from the Storm of Fire, or and so still do an action and still blow everything up. Or you can have an ethereal in a transport pop out with a unit of breaches, have them chuck down a sneaky flag on an objective and still shred a unit that's nearby. So that's the only reason, to be honest, I could see you ever taking this specific invocation.
Sure. Well, at least it's got some use. Do you want to go through Sense of Stone, Graydon?
Yeah, so I'm sure anybody who's seen it, this is money. This is one of the money ones.
Cha-ching.
So to reiterate, pretty much all of them say can't target Farsight Enclave's units. So it select a friendly Tau Empire core unit within 6 inches. Every time a core model in that unit would lose a wound on a 5-up, that wound is not lost. So you get 5-up, feel no pain on a core unit, and yeah, this is money. And to highlight broadsides and crisis suits, core key with it.
Enough said. All right, number 3, Jack.
Zephyr's Grace. If this invocation is inspiring, select one friendly Tau Empire core unit, excluding Farsight, within 6 of this ethereal. Each time a ranged attack is made against that unit, if it did not remain stationary in your previous movement phase, subtract 1 for the attack's hit roll.
Not bad. What are your thoughts?
It's okay. I really feel like if you've only got 2 to 3 invocations to choose from, I think this one sadly gets a pass still. I think there's still at least another 1 to come. That's pretty good.
I agree with Jack. This is number 3 if you've got a character ethereal.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us about number 4, Gray.
Number 4 is Power of Tides. So if this invocation is inspiring, select one friendly Tau Auxiliary unit within 6 inches of this ethereal. Each time the model in that unit makes an attack, add 1 to that attack's wound roll. So this is for all the Kroot lovers out there. If you're taking massed Kroot, this is almost just compulsory. To highlight it too, this works in shooting as well. So
that's nice. That's not bad. Especially you got a big 20 blob.
Yeah, mate. Right? So you can if you go Daleth Sept and suddenly the Kroot are benefiting from Montcar, suddenly you have a 20-man unit of Kroot that can be rerolling 1s, they can be ignoring cover, so rerolling 1s to hit, rerolling 1s to wound, ignoring cover, having +1 to that attack's wound roll, and they're shooting at strength 4, AP neg 1. That's not nothing for like a 120-point unit to chuck down. Yeah.
You're competing with Space Marines at those kind of stats,
You can turn Kroot into like essentially like goth boys, like almost, or like some like almost like witch level sort of output. There's a way to get Kroot if you stack the warlord traits and the strats right. You can actually get Kroot up to 3 or 4 strength 5 neg 1 attacks with +1 to wound, which is I mean, it takes a bit of jank to do, and I don't actually think it's good, but it's fun.
Yeah, and that's what matters, right?
Yeah,
pulling up the crazy stuff, and that'd work on Vespers too. Yeah, are they?
It does definitely work on Vespid.
All right, number 5, Jack.
All right, Unifying Mantra. This is an aura. If this invocation is inspiring, then while the friendly Tau Empire core unit is within 6 inches of this ethereal, you can reroll morale test for that unit, and you can add 1 to the combat attrition test taken for that unit. Yeah, I get all the good. I've been getting all the good ones. So it's not.
So you mean invocation number 6 on the list, right?
No,
this is number 5, and you might as well just take a big fat black texter and completely block it out.
Just write that one off.
So tell us about number 6, Gray.
So number 6, I agree with what Jack was alluding to. This is one of the other money ones. If this invocation is inspiring, you gain a command point.
Oh, lovely.
It's good. Fantastic, really.
Actual pretty much 40k money.
Yeah.
Actual literal 40k money.
Stick it
I
in
roll
your
a
bank.
I roll a 2+. Here, I have a command point. Thank you very much.
See you later.
Much
Yeah.
appreciated.
All right, love that. So that's pretty tasty. That gives Tau quite a nice bit of extra spice on the top, and I like that. Obviously ethereals aren't essential, but you won't be upset having them. There's clearly enough there to get a bit of use out of those.
All right, so the Tau Empire Warlord traits. What do we got first, Jack?
All right, so number 1 is the Precision of the Hunter. Each time this warlord makes an attack, you can reroll the hit roll and can reroll the wound roll. So that's powerful. That's really good.
Tight. Never going to be upset about that one.
That's
Never ever.
Money
Nah, it's-
warlord trait.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And number 2, what have we got, Gray?
Through Unity Devastation. So this is one of the OG ones. It's an aura. While a friendly Sept core unit is within 6 inches of this warlord, each time a core model in that unit makes a ranged attack, on an unmodified wound roll of a 6, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. Yeah, this is I think it's decent. I think it's very decent. I think it's just a bit overshadowed by some of them. I mean,
It used to be a must take in the old codex. There was always the only take, really. I mean, that
it was the only take.
I think it was the only take in the old codex.
You're a bit spoiled
Yeah,
for
no,
choice now.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so for the third trait, we have Ghost Walks Among Us. Each time an attack is made against this warlord, subtract 1 from that attack's hit roll. Each time this warlord advances, do not make an advance roll. Instead, until the end of the phase, add 6 to the move characteristic of this warlord. I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, so I used to use this on an ethereal way back when, just to kind of give them like a good movement, and they could follow the crisis suits.
Sure,
So I
sure.
reckon that, that was definitely a play back then. So I reckon it would port over to this codex as well. So I think that's the play for it.
Especially now that you get to pay for extra warlord traits, that's pretty good. Obviously not the top, but that's definitely solid.
You can add it into a build if you want just the Enforcer commander that will not die. Adding -1 to hit to him is always going to help.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and Jack, number 4. What do we got?
Through Boldness Victory. In your command phase, select 1 friendly Sept core unit within 9 inches of this warlord. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a core model in that unit makes a ranged attack, an unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically wounds a target.
What do you reckon?
Okay.
I think this one's really good. I think it's not your first pick. It's not probably your second pick, but as a third pick, as a buffing sort of ability, it works really well on your units that like to pop shots off out of line of sight. So your big Crisis Airburst squads or your broadside squads with smart missile systems. It just having those 6s automatically wound just means they can start to pick wounds off things that they normally wouldn't be able to do a lot of damage into.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely increases your efficiency, and it's always the goal, really, right?
I think as well, high volume and if lower strength weapons would really kick in.
Yeah, especially if someone's got a lot of defensive bonuses. I'm noticing a lot of -1 to wound creeping in. It's starting to make an appearance, so auto wounds is going to be nice to have.
Yeah, 100%. Especially with those high volume, low strength weapons that you've got a fair few of.
For sure. What is number 5? Grey.
Exemplar of the Kion. After both players have deployed their armies and determined who has the first turn, select up to 1 friendly Sept unit or up to 3 friendly Sept and redeploy them. If the mission uses the strategic reserve rules, any of those units can be placed into strategic reserves without having to spend any additional CPs, regardless of how many units are already in strategic reserves. If both players have abilities that redeploy units roll off, the winner chooses who redeploys their units first. I mean, redeploy is always good. I think this is probably what gives Kion a run, like Monkar run for its money and power. This trait, I think, redeploys can be incredibly powerful in a savvy, hands, essentially.
I like that it also doesn't punish you for not actually taking Kion, so you'll still get at least a redeploy should you decide to go Montcar instead. So I think that's great.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of units that can even if you're 100%, I'm going Montcar every game. I think having a commander up your sleeve or someone up your sleeve with this Warlord trait is useful just to save units after the fact of knowing who's going first that you may have deployed just that little bit too aggressively.
Yeah, great tactical advantage there. Alright, so number 6 we have Exemplar of the Montcar. In your command phase, select one friendly Sept core unit within 9 of this Warlord. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a core model in that unit makes a ranged attack that targets an enemy unit within 9 or 12 if you selected Montcar, you can reroll the wound roll. That's pretty tasty.
Very tasty.
Big amount of value out of this one if you get it off nicely.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of play for having both of those in your list. I do like the idea that you could take both of them and just kind of confuse your opponent as to what you're actually going to be running.
Yeah, having both up your sleeve allows you to get the most out of both, obviously, if you choose their tactical philosophy. So yeah, it's pretty good. Obviously, in my opinion, the Exemplar of the Montcar is very powerful. Reroll to wounds is very powerful. Once again, Tau have so many, high volume, lower strength weapons. So just giving them rerolls is just powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And plenty of anti-invul. So I mean, you can nearly use that to just guarantee things die, which is perfect.
Yeah, I think Exemplar of the Montcar is something that you're going to see in pretty much every Tau list, just because the ability, the core word is so liberally sprinkled amongst some of the best units in this decks, and the ability to just turn on full wound rolls for those units is too good to pass up, I think.
Absolutely. Alright, now moving on to the Kroot Warlord traits. Gotta love that they've thrown Kroot a few bones here. There'll be some pretty stoked fans out there, I'm sure. Jack, what have we got for number 1?
Alright, so number 1 we have Master of the Hunt. While the friendly Kroot model is within 6 inches of this Warlord, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack that targets a unit within 12 inches, the target does not receive the benefits of cover against that attack. So okay if you've got a lot of Kroot, and a lot of people in cover.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
and a unit within 12 inches, so you get nice and close as well. So it's a lot of tick boxes before it kicks up.
I don't think it's amazing on the surface, but I think you'll find when you get into a more competitive kind of situation, a lot of people do use really great, cover to their advantage. And so while it's not amazing use all the time, it actually comes up quite a bit when you're playing someone who's kind of worth their salt. So not epic, but not awful at the same time. What have we got for number 2, Gray?
So we have Pack Leader, which is an aura. While a friendly Kroot unit is within 6 inches of this Warlord, each time you make a charge roll for that unit, roll 1 additional d6 and discard 1 of the dice. This is good. This is good if you go along the Kroot. Because it affects everything. It affects your hounds and your Krootoks as well, because they've got the Kroot keyword.
And I mean, you want to be up in someone's face if you want to take a lot of Kroot. So, I think
if you're
that's going to be good.
Being that champion that's just running massive Kroot blobs and in Daleth Sept, this is the one you're taking with you on your Shaper.
Yeah, for sure. At least one of the Shapers.
At least one of your Shapers.
So number 3, Nomadic Hunter. While a friendly Kroot unit is within 6 of this Warlord, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, if that unit did not fall back this turn, it counts as having remained stationary during its previous movement phase.
What's this for?
I don't even know.
It's it's to help fill up the page.
No, I'm just curious what this actually does for the Kroot at all. Who does this affect?
Hold on, let's Let's have a look. Let's
Don't
check
Kroot
out.
have rapid fire weapons? Like they've got like a basically bolt
Yeah.
gun profile weapons.
Yep,
And
they got rapid fire 1.
I didn't think Krootoks were infantry.
So you can use the heavy guns on the Krutox because I mean
Yeah,
you
it's a
need
heavy
to
gun,
count
yeah.
as remaining stationary to not have the -1. So
No. You're not infantry, so you don't get -1.
oh, true. He's Cav.
I think it's just so you can advance and shoot them. This is pretty niche. This is a niche Warlord track.
And hence my.
Sure.
It's nice.
I mean, if you go on 3 Kroot Shapers and 3 Kroot Warlord traits and all Kroot Army, like, why not?
Yeah, I mean, you got to use up your CP somehow, right? So, moving on to relics. So that we don't have to cover them all, we're just going to pick a few that we liked. Graydon, what do you reckon? What's your pick?
My pick is the Multi-Sensory Discouragement Array, the ultimate pocket sand relic. So, at the start of your movement phase, select one enemy unit within 12 inches of the bearer and roll 3d6. If the result is greater than the enemy unit's leadership characteristic, select one of the following results to take effect until the start of your next movement phase. The selected unit loses the Obsec ability, halve the move characteristic of models in that unit, and halve charge rolls made for that unit. Or each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, it can only target the closest eligible target. This is super frustrating if you get it off. Obviously, it's like got that random element of it with the 3d6 above your leadership, but it's clutch when it works, and it's so frustrating when you get it off on models that have a 6-inch move.
And it's not that hard to get 3d6 over leadership. I mean, you only have to roll 3 3s, and that's below average for most armies.
Around.
Yeah. So,
On Custodians.
not bad. I like it.
I do like that you do it before your shooting phase, so at least if you fail it, you can kind of recover it by trying to blow up whatever was in
Blow up the unit. Just kill it anyway.
Yeah.
I think what it's really valuable for is the removing Obsec is always great, but I think the 2 money abilities are forcing an enemy unit to shoot the closest enemy unit. This is great.
Make that your bodyguard.
Oh, no, because it's eligible. But you just things like knights. Imagine, do you know how you shut down knights?
True.
You just make them shoot a unit of 4 Kroot Hounds. And they really don't like to do that. It's pretty funny. And then the other one is... Oh, actually, I don't know if you can target knights, can you? Oh, no, it should be.
Just says one
Not
enemy.
like how needed.
Yeah, that's great.
Extra.
And then, like, other things, if you've got a unit... Say you've got this, unit of custodes on foot staring you down, you've pushed far forward into it, you just hit them with the half move characteristic and half charge rolls, and then suddenly that unit of custodes is moving 3 inches towards you, and they got to make a 9-inch charge, and then when they do, you go, oh look, I'm gonna pop the strat for neck 2 to charges, and you just can't make that 9-inch charge because you're halving your entire charge roll. So no matter what bonuses you get, no matter what auto 6 plus however many inches you get, you're not making that charge. And you could just stand 12 inches away from somebody going, you can't touch me.
You'll never get
this.
I love that you get 3 abilities. Like that's fantastic. Even if you only get to pick one, the fact that you get that option to just say, "Oh, this is more relevant right now," like that's great. It's so good. So many relics kind of become redundant occasionally in like a certain matchup because the right stars haven't aligned, and this is just like, oh yeah, that'll do. Like I don't see any game where you don't want to take Obsec away, cut a move down, or prevent shooting at a certain target. That's wicked.
Even if you don't build around this is one of those clutch abilities when things are coming down to the wire, turns 4, turns 5, you look at, like, you know, those big characters that are throwing their weight around, they're starting to clear smaller units off objectives, to suddenly go down to one of those characters and just be like, you cannot do anything this turn, that can win you games. 100% that can win you games. And it might not happen because you need to roll above, you know, a 9 or a 10 on both characters. But if I will take a, you know, 50 to 60% chance of just going, I've clutch won this game.
That's great. All right, so what have you picked, Jack?
All right, so for my relic, I've chosen Ortu's Lantern. Now, not sure about the pronunciation, but that's what we're going to go with. So you give this relic to a model equipped with the Marker Light. Each time this model performs the Fire Marker Light's action, you roll 5 additional d6s, each of which causes the enemy to gain 1 Marker Light token on a roll of a 3+. So you turn your 1 Marker Light dude into essentially a 6 Marker Light dude.
That's
so
great. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You do have to target the same model, is my understanding, but it's still pretty good because you'll want to have multiple. If you have multiple units shooting at, you know, the same target, you'll want multiple Marker Lights on a unit anyway.
Yeah.
And on average, he puts 4 on, so not bad.
So just an epic spotlight, and I mean, there's always that one unit in an army that you really need to get rid of. So that's really nice.
Yeah.
This sounds like it was like custom made for the spotter for the sniper drones, because he's a character, so he can take relics too, and he can just chuck this one on him. And he's, you know, also has the rule where if he doesn't move, he can't be targeted, except for things within 12 inches. So you can just have him mucking around somewhere up the top of a building, throwing down
Marker Lights.
Yeah, I'd say nothing wrong with that.
That's real nice.
No, it's good.
All right, I'm going to pick, for the Kroot fans, Borthrod Gland. Kroot model only. Once per battle in your command phase, the bearer can use this relic. If it does, until the start of your next command phase, the bearer gains the following ability: Alien Gland's Aura. While a friendly Kroot unit is within 6 of this model, add 1 to the attacks and 1 to the strength characteristic of models in that unit. I love the idea of this for big swarms of Kroot. Just big blobs running up the field, and suddenly they're punching harder and they're, you know, punching more. It's not amazing, I don't think, but I think it's just simple and effective. And, you know, if you're going to be running that full Kroot army, or at least like a large contingent of it, I don't see why not want to, you know, hit harder, even if it isn't once per battle. It could really change the tide on a certain wing or a flank, or even take an objective for you.
Does what it says in the tin. It's pretty good. Gets you extra attacks. Not bad.
I think this is good if you're running big blobs of Kroot and stuff like this. And I mean, as I said before, anything that says Kroot unit also stacks with your Kroot Hounds and stacks with your Krootox. So Kroot Hounds make good use of this, and so do Kroot. The +1 strength is pretty good on them too. It pushes them above quite a lot of breakpoints. Strength 4 to 5 is good, and on the Hound, strength 3 to 4 is also good.
Well, and if you can manage to coordinate multiple attacks in multiple fronts and have your Shaper in like a really key position, you could be using this across the battlefield in, you know, 3 or more combats. And while you know, you've only got it once, you may as well make good use of it. And if you can kind of line that up, suddenly everyone's punching harder. Not bad. All right, moving to the prototype systems. So this is our new fancy upgrade, but Tau style, mixing a variety of character bonuses or buffs with some alternate weaponry. So we've picked a few of the key ones, just so we don't have to go through them all. There's about 10 of those there. So Graydon, what are you thinking? Which of these will you be prioritizing?
So the first one that I particularly like is the stim injectors. So this is Commander or Crisis model only. Once per battle, when a saving throw is failed for the bearer can use this prototype system. If it does, until the end of the turn, each time the bearer would lose a wound, roll on a d6. On a 4+, the wound is not lost. 4 up, feel no pain. It's
good.
Yeah, love it. Especially that you can just pay a few points for it. Like, that's really nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. On either a character, if you've got a spot left on a character, you just windmill slam this onto them. You never go wrong. And if you, if you've got a big squad of Crisis and you're not giving them one of the other signature systems, you just chuck this on the Chazvray, and when they lose the wounds, suddenly you start to have that much better survivability on that unit, which is fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. All right, Jack, what have you picked, mate?
All right, I've gone with the Resonator Warheads. So once again, it goes on a Commander or Crisis model that's equipped with one or more missile pods. This prototype system replaces one missile pod and has the following profile. So it's range 30, assault 3, strength 8, AP 2 damage. And it's got a special ability. So each time the bearer shoots this weapon, if any hits are scored against an infantry, beast, or cavalry unit, until the start of your next shooting phase, halve the move characteristics of models in that unit. If models in that unit are affected by other modifiers to their move characteristic, this ability cannot reduce it to less than half. So it's got good range, and then having move characteristics from far away is great for a shooting army. I mean, beautiful.
Especially against your, classic enemy, the melee army.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite nice.
It's pretty good. That.
All right. Have you got another choice, Gray?
I do. I have the Dominator Fragmentation Launcher. So this is for a Commander or Crisis model only, and it replaces one of your Airburst Fragmentation Projectors. It is a Airburst with +1 strength, so it goes up to strength 5, neg 2 AP rather than neg 1, and otherwise it still retains the 24-inch range blast ability and ignoring line of sight. But its special ability is each time the bearer shoots with this weapon, if any hits are scored, until the end of the turn, subtract 4 from the leadership characteristics of models in the target unit. That's a big swing.
Damn.
And you can combine that with a strat for 1 CP to count casualties as double, which leads to some swingy things you can do with leadership in small units. I like it.
Well, that's actually a realistic and usable leadership debuff.
Mm.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, it's easy to apply, and I like it in a unit of your Crisis suits with your Airbursts. You just chuck this on the Chazvray, and they shoot one thing, and he just pot shots another thing and debuffs them, and then you kill one model in the unit. You pop the strat for having it count as 2 models, and next 6 swing on leadership is enough for a lot of units to fail pretty easily.
Yeah, that's true. And if you manage to do well with it, you can just save that strat for another unit, make 2 units run if you do well on that other 100%. One as well. Wow. You could actually clear a backline in one shooting phase, have 2 units of 5 sitting up the back. Damn.
Yeah, and you start to I mean, at the end of the day, this is designed so you can make a Custodes or some other player with lots of 3 and 4 man units with leadership 10 cry when you make one of their 60-point models run away.
Oh, for sure. That's great. I actually quite love that. I recently made Chris B made his what are they called? The Iron Striders. I made one Iron Strider run away, and then the other one ran away.
No.
All I did was kill one.
You know what I've been using?
It's on video as well. Yeah.
I played Mate the other day, and it turns out Orc Buggies don't like Dominator Fragmentation Projector. The next 6 swing on Orc Buggies causes them to run. You pop one, and then the other one disappears.
Oh, and then the other one's going to run on 1 or 2.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It's so funny because they're like 100, they're like 90 points, and you just you shoot this and then you pop it, and then you're just like, I don't have to kill the other one. It's going to run away. It's got next 6 to its leadership, and all the Orc things stop the combat attrition. They don't stop the initial one from pissing off.
That's fantastic.
Money.
Gotta love 100-point models running away. All right. Jack, have you got a second prototype system?
Yep. So I'm going to go with the Nova Surge Plasma Rifle.
Ooh, sounds nice.
So yeah, very tasty. So Commander Crisis model that's equipped with the Plasma Rifle is replaced with this prototype weapon. So the Nova Surge Plasma Rifle, it's got 30-inch range, Assault 1, Strength 8, -5 AP, and 3 damage. And each time attack is made with this weapon, invulnerable save cannot be made.
Oh, again?
Just again.
This codex is gnarly.
Mm.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's
Good.
pretty tasty.
And especially if you know that there's a character upfield with a few wounds, you just go, see you later, mate. You're done, son.
Yeah, I really like this on any sort of backfield commander that you're running, especially like in a Farside Enclaves where you might be running 4+ commanders. On your third or your fourth commander, you have him sitting around backfield chucking out some buffs, and then he's got this on him, and he's just laying down consistent fire with his excellent ballistic skill, and
especially if he's got the reroll hits and wounds as well. You only got one shot. At least it's probably going to actually go through.
Well, if he's Farside Enclaves, he rerolls the wound. Like he just does that natively.
True.
Like get one reroll, and you're going to use it on this, aren't you?
Mm.
You think so? All right, nice. And we'll leave all of you to look through the rest of the prototype systems. There's some other tasty gems in there to be discovered, but that's at least our cream of the crop. Moving on to the chapter Approved Rules, or otherwise known as the Secondaries list. It's not something that any of us are a real fan of. They haven't been too widely praised, but occasionally some of these will slip into some of your more casual games or your narrative, so let's just have a quick look. Under Shadow Operations, we've got the Aerospace Targeting Relays. It's an endgame objective. If you select this objective, place an aerospace designation marker halfway along each battlefield edge. Units in your army can perform the following action. Install Targeting Relay. One or more infantry units from your army can start to perform this action at the end of the movement phase. Each unit from your army that starts to perform this must be within 6 of a different aerospace designation marker that has not had a targeting relay installed, or you essentially do it on only one of them per game. The action is completed at the start of your next command phase or at the end of the battle, whichever comes first. If this action is successfully completed, that aerospace designation marker is said to have had a targeting ray installed upon it. At the end of the battle, you score a number of victory points based on how many targeting relays were installed, as shown below. And of course, because there's only 4 sides of the board, you get 2 for 1, 6 for 2, 9 for 3, and 15 for 4. Thoughts, guys? Is this usable at all?
Barely.
I mean, it's not awful. I mean, I think it deserves a little bit of, a little bit of attention.
If it didn't happen if you didn't have to sit there for the entirety of your opponent's turn, it'd be really good, because it'd be a pretty easy, or a potentially pretty easy 15, or at least a very consistent 9.
You get 9. Yeah.
But having to do it and sit there just leaves you open to just
getting shot off. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true. I definitely think you could get a bit of play or a bit of fun out of it in the narrative, but aside from that, it's definitely got some. There's better choices, really.
I think it's just this one is competing with retrieve Nachman data.
Yeah,
that one's just easier to do.
That's true. It's just Nachman, but in the middle instead of on the quarter, and it takes longer. But at least you can get 15. So I mean, if you pull it off, you're going to score 15. At least Nachman, you only score 12. All right. So Battlefield Supremacy. This is a decisive action. If you select the Montcar tactical philosophy at the start of the battle, then at the end of your turn in the battle rounds 1, 2, and 3, score 4 victory points if you control half or more of the total number of objective markers on the battlefield. If you selected the Kion tactical philosophy at the start of the battle, then you must control more objectives in rounds 3, 4, and 5. scoring 4 for each as well. So, I mean, it's just supremacy, but more specific. You get a few more points, but it's harder to pull off.
It's kind of bad. I feel that this should be like, if this was potentially, I don't know if it'd be too good at 5 points for each turn you get it. It may be too good and too swingy for 5 points, but at 4 points, it doesn't feel like it gives you enough for exposing and throwing away so many of your forces. And it also, like, your opponent sees it coming. They see it coming a mile away.
Yep, especially if you've taken Carrion, like, they're prepping for that for 2 turns.
Yeah, and if you're taking Montcar, they know, like, oh, I just have to, like, it values them to put a lot of, like, or to just deny it for you. And not only are they doing what they should be doing anyway to a certain extent, which is getting models on objectives, they are getting a good swing out of it too on your secondary game.
Absolutely, and trading armies like Blood Angels or Drukhari want to be in your face anyway, and you've just given them a massive reason to just get straight up the battlefield. Like, they don't care if they die.
Yeah, you don't want to be trading with them, with those armies with this objective in the first 3 turns of the game, I don't think.
Under No Mercy, No Respite, we have a clean victory, another end game objective. If you selected Montcar at the start of the battle, then at the end of battle rounds 1, 2, and 3, you score each of the following: 1 victory point if 1 or more enemies were destroyed that battle round, 3 victory points if 3 or more enemies were destroyed that battle round. If you selected Carrion, then in turns 3, 4, and 5, you can score each of the following: 1 victory point if 1 or more enemy units were destroyed, 3 victory points if 3 or more were destroyed. So it's the same thing, but back to front for Montcar or Carrion. So, I mean, look, it's not absolutely terrible, but there's definitely still better choices, I think. What do you guys think?
It's a bad grind them down. Like, grind them down gives you 1 less point, and you can score it every turn of the game.
Every turn, yeah. You can just score this in 3 turns. It doesn't really...
Especially for an army that's going to have a lot of small throwaway units at the start to do action monkey sort of things, and then have a lot of chunky units that are particularly difficult to put down. I feel Tau play into getting at least 4 turns out of grind them down a lot easier than they do in this one.
Yeah, sure.
I just personally don't like anything that puts too much agency in your opponent's hands as to how you score points in the game.
And if you've taken Montcar and the opponent's savvy, you just don't turn up for 2 turns. They get your points. See you later.
Yeah.
Just sit in your deployment zone and say, okay, yep, no points for you, buddy. Sorry about that. I actually don't think that one's awful, but I get that there's better choices. Depends who you're fighting. Like, you could actually, if you come across someone who's got way more units than you, that actually might be okay. But
I think if you come
like
across,
that you have to do it in certain rounds. Like, that's kind of sucks.
That's the big thing. If you come across somebody, the people that this is going to work on, the sort of opponents that this is going to work on, you are probably going to beat with anyway. If you are playing into an opponent that's taking, MSU, not playing it properly, and you're wiping 3 to 4 MSU units off the board in turns 1, 2, and 3, like, you've won that game anyway. Like, what does it matter? So,
the only thing I like this for is if you are playing a really narrative game and you want to take a narrative-related secondary, and then you can pick one of these 2 that, rewards you for being Montcar or Carrion specialist. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's nice. Yeah.
That's about it. Well, if anyone does have any success with these, do let us know. Come in Discord and tell us your strategy. I'm sure we'd love to hear it. Alright, and that will wrap us up for the first half of the Tau Codex review. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Apologies if there's any audio discrepancies. We've had to record this one across a few different sessions to make sure we got it done, because it's quite a lengthy and fat book. Tune in next episode for part 2. We'll be doing a deep dive on the Tau Sept factions, including their warlord traits, strats, and some lists for each of the major factions, as well as a look into some of the key characters for the Tau Empire. Give us a like, drop a comment in the YouTube comments or on the platform of your listening choice. Drop us a sub if you're loving the content, and hit us up on Patreon if you want to continue supporting what we do. We love doing it for you, and we appreciate all your feedback and support. Catch you next episode. Keep the good dice rolling.